James Dyson spent 5 years and $700 million to build an electric car. Yes, a car from Dyson. There was a prototype, a factory plan in Singapore. Over 500 engineers worked full-time. But in 2019, the project was shut down. No launch, no production, not a single car sold. So, why would a company best known for vacuums and hair dryers spend all that money on a Tesla rival, only to drop out right before the finish line? Dyson's first breakthrough came back in 1974, a reinvented wheelbarrow that swapped the usual narrow rubber wheel for a plastic ball, making it much easier to push through muddy terrain. He called it the ball barrow because, of course, he did. Then came the bagless vacuum, the one that made him famous. It took 10 years and 5,127 prototypes before he finally got it right. After that, he turned his attention to pretty much anything that moved air: high-speed hand dryers, bladeless fans, and air purifiers. You've definitely come across at least one of them, unless you've been living under a particularly well-insulated rock. But here's the real question. How did all that lead to an electric car? The answer is surprisingly simple. Dyson's concern about pollution dates back a long time, and it had nothing to do with global warming. What really bothered him was the thick, dirty exhaust from diesel engines, which are everywhere in Europe. In his book, he wrote, "I've always been horrified, even as a child, by the clouds of black smoke emerging from the back of vehicles, especially diesels. As a pedestrian, a cyclist, or in a car following directly in the slipstream of a diesel vehicle, you breathe in a huge volume of this filth." In Britain alone, 34,000 people a year die from inhaling exhaust fumes. While building a car might have seemed like a leap back then, Dyson had been moving in that direction for years. Back in the early 90s, he designed a filter that could trap diesel particles from trucks, using the same tech behind his bagless vacuum. But trucking companies weren't interested. They just didn't want to deal with emptying it. He also blamed UK and EU regulators, who kept pushing the idea that diesel was green and clean, despite all the research pointing to the opposite. There was a sort of jilted feeling. Dyson said, admitting that his search for a better solution has been lurking ever since. By 2014, the pieces started to fall into place. Dyson was developing more advanced battery technology, and thanks to their vacuums, the company had already become a global leader in electronic motors. They also had ongoing R&D in air purifiers and heaters. At some point, James Dyson realized they weren't just building parts, they were quietly building the foundation for an electric car. When we realized, almost by accident, that we had the technology to build an electric car, it was natural to go into it, Dyson said. Dyson made some bold moves to get things going. He hired former engineers from Aston Martin and Jaguar Land Rover and bought an abandoned military airfield in Hullivington, Wiltshire. The place had been empty for years. 59 acres of old Royal Air Force airfield, about 2 hours from London. Dyson turned it into the base for his secret car project. 2 hangars were quickly redone to house the team, and there were even plans for a 10-mile test track. On top of all of that, Dyson chose Singapore as the location for its future EV factory. The company was already making other products just across the border in Malaysia and saw Southeast Asia as a key market for the car. He even announced plans to move Dyson's global headquarters to Singapore. Still, the decision raised a few eyebrows in the auto world. Singapore had no car industry to speak of, a small domestic car market, and sky-high labor costs. According to Dyson, the move made sense because of the strong pool of engineering talent, battery supply chains across Asia, and access to fast-growing markets like China. Hey, if you're finding this video interesting, a quick like and subscribe would mean a lot, and it helps the channel more than you think. By mid-2019, the engineering team had grown to 500 people. A production facility was already under construction in Singapore, and the first working prototype was ready. The car, codenamed N526, was a large 7-seat SUV powered by a massive 150 kilowatt-hour battery and promising a range of up to 600 miles. It used two Dyson-built electric motors, 264 horsepower each, one in the front and one in the rear. Despite weighing 2.87 tons, it could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 4.6 seconds, with a top speed of 125 miles per hour. Dyson was especially proud that the motors and control systems were designed completely in-house. As he put it, they didn't borrow parts from other manufacturers. And that's where the problem started. Building a car from scratch without using parts from other manufacturers turned out to be ridiculously expensive. And for the components Dyson did have to buy, suppliers weren't exactly generous. As newcomers to the auto industry, they were charged more, sometimes up to 25% more than established car makers paid. That alone made the whole thing much pricier to produce. On top of all of that, Dyson planned to sell directly to customers, skipping dealerships. That meant they'd need warehouses, logistics, and financing solutions in every country they launched in. And unlike with vacuums or hair dryers, they couldn't guarantee big production volumes, which made it harder to negotiate good deals with suppliers. Fewer cars meant higher costs per unit. Simple math. At those volumes, Dyson estimated the car would have to sell for around $210,000 just to break even. But let's be honest, very few people are going to spend so much money on a car made by a vacuum company. And then came a much bigger wave. Traditional car makers suddenly started rushing into EV development, mostly because of Dieselgate, the emissions scandal that broke in late 2015. Volkswagen had been caught programming around 11 million of its diesel cars to cheat emissions tests, activating pollution controls in the lab but switching them off on the road. The scandal didn't just hit Volkswagen, it shook the entire industry. Public trust in diesel collapsed, and automakers started shifting focus to electric. At the same time, governments across Europe and China were rolling out plans to phase out gas engines in the coming decades, pushing big car brands even harder toward EVs. Take Volkswagen, for example. After the shift to EVs, they leaned on their massive production base and decades of experience, all while pouring in billions. The Volkswagen Group announced plans to invest over 30 billion euros into its electric car program by 2023, roll out 70 all-electric models by 2028, and build 22 million EVs over the next 10 years. Now, compare that to Dyson. They pledged £2.5 billion for research, but only £1 billion of it was set aside for the car project. That kind of scale made Dyson's project look like a drop in the ocean. The bigger issue, according to Sir James, was that traditional car makers could afford to sell their EVs at a loss and make it back by selling petrol and diesel cars. That kind of cross-subsidizing meant they could price Dyson's car out of the market. Their cars would undercut the price of our car by a significant margin, he said. As mentioned earlier, Dyson's SUV would need to be priced around $210,000 just to break even, way above what established brands were asking for their EVs. The one major exception was Tesla. Often seen as the ultimate EV success story, it still took them nearly a decade after their 2010 IPO to become consistently profitable. Despite huge demand, they kept losing money until 2020 and had to raise billions just to stay afloat. In 2019 alone, Tesla brought in $2.7 billion in fresh funding. At one point, they were burning over $1 billion every quarter, far more than Dyson had ever spent on its entire EV project. And early on, a big part of Tesla's income didn't even come from selling cars. It came from selling emissions credits to other automakers. In the US, that brought in hundreds of millions per year. In Europe, Tesla reportedly earned around 1.8 billion euros through a CO2 credit deal with Fiat Chrysler in 2020 and 2021. With the market shifting fast, Dyson made the decision to pull out of production at the last minute. As a technology-based car being developed by a non-automotive company, we realized that our car was suddenly no longer commercially viable. We just couldn't ever have made money from it. And for all our enthusiasm, we weren't prepared to risk the rest of Dyson. Back in 2014, we knew we'd entered a competitive field, but believed that competitors were mostly ignoring the demands for electric cars. What we did not predict was Dieselgate, or that the landscape would change so dramatically in the interim. In the end, Dyson took a $700 million hit and walked away. It's a private company after all. Just goes to show, even in a world where billionaires seem to get richer in their sleep, they're not immune to very bad decisions. Had Dyson managed to make the numbers work, things might have turned out differently. Because the EV market didn't just grow, it exploded. By 2024, over 20% of all new cars sold worldwide were electric. Here's the graph. From 2014 to 2019, global EV sales reached around 2 million, and by 2024, that number had jumped to over 17 million. In just 5 years, electric cars went from niche to mainstream. By the end of 2024, there were nearly 58 million EVs on the road worldwide. So yeah, probably not the best trend to miss. In the end, Dyson insisted this wasn't a product failure, just an economic reality. The car was simply too expensive to bring to market. Still, the project wasn't a waste. It pushed the company to learn more about batteries, robotics, air systems, and lighting. It also advanced their use of virtual engineering, helping them design faster and cheaper in the future. It was the hardest decision we've ever had to make, says Dyson. So many designers and engineers put so much effort into it, and it hadn't seen the light of day. A $700 million car that no one ever drove. But not all experiments are meant to end on the road. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Crazy to think, right? Dyson electric cars could have been driving past you by now if just a few things had gone differently. But who knows, maybe one day. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and we'll see you guys in the next video.